Good evening and welcome to another edition of TRD Talks Live. I'm Hiten Samtani, the Real Deal's associate publisher, and today we have another very, very special edition of TRD Talks Live with the cast of Million Dollar Listing Los Angeles. These are some of LA's top brokers, they're some of LA's biggest characters, and we're here to talk about the market, but also to talk about how they conduct their business in this time. So just going to do a quick introduction, and we have one panelist or surprise panelist who's going to show up in a couple minutes.
Who?
So we'll see, we'll find out,
There you go.
Next to me is Josh Altman of Douglas Elliman. Next to him, Josh Flagg, who's our host today. So Josh, first of all, thanks for that.
Thank you.
Did it.
Excellent.
James Harris from the agency, and David Parnes, also from the agency. Our sponsor this evening is Geary's of Beverly Hills. So Geary's, thank you for the support. Thank you for making this happen.
Thanks, Tom.
Tom is helpful.
Tom Blumenthal.
So let's just get started, guys.
That's why you got all this free Geary stuff.
Exactly.
Also-
I wish. I wish.
That makes sense.
I
Very
wish.
rarely do we do stuff for free.
If only.
Our viewers are
Josh
gonna be-
just got 50 grand
If
worth of
only, I wish.
stuff from Geary as well. We just got the
I would
Shack.
be the happiest person on earth.
Our viewers are going to be familiar with this dynamic, so I'm not too worried about it.
And he said some of the top brokers. I'm pretty sure it's the top brokers. I don't know.
would say so,
You know what I'm
100%.
saying?
I guess you guys would say so. But let's start with this phenomenon we heard about 3 or 4 months ago. Everyone was talking about pent-up demand, right? There's pent-up demand in the market. Sales are going to come back as soon as the shutdown is over. Guess what? That actually did happen, right? So were you guys prepared for that sort of volume? We were talking off camera, David, about just this deluge of sales that happened. So
Yeah.
Deluge, that's a great word.
thanks, man. I appreciate it.
I didn't even know that word existed.
It's all right.
You do.
I drank out of a deluge once. Or what was that? Oh, a luge.
That's a luge.
That's
Never
the
mind,
luge.
yeah.
That's like a bobsled.
Yeah.
But tell me,
Yeah.
were you prepared, and how did you guys gear up for that sort of wave or deluge?
It's been amazing. Actually, it was funny. Deluge, yes.
Deluge.
Back in March, when this all happened, I remember I was on the phone to James. We were like, okay, we've now got to strategize because this is not looking good right now.
Yep.
And within a month, we were busier than ever. And actually, when you look back on it, it makes sense because you've got low interest rates right now and people are spending more time at home than ever. So their house is becoming more important. We're seeing so many first-time home buyers taking advantage of the low interest rates and locking them in right now. And demand is crazy.
Right.
So it's just a great situation.
What sectors are really heating up or are on fire at the moment? What parts of the market? Because we talk luxury market in LA, that could mean anything from 3 million all the way up to 100 and whatever million,
I
right?
think our area of luxury starts at around 2 million, whereas the rest of America might be a lot less. But we're seeing activity anywhere from $2 to $20 million. Again, like David said, low interest rates, but every sale that we're experiencing is circumstantial to COVID. People want a bigger house, more land, gated community, secondary residence. Some people want a smaller house, less land. It's all circumstantial to COVID. A home office, somewhere the kids can Zoom from. So we're seeing sales across the board.
These are all
right now.
specific asks that buyers are making off you guys.
Yes, big time.
Yeah, I was very surprised. I was not prepared for the influx of business coming in because you got to realize right when it happened, of course, there were those 3
Right,
months
yeah.
that was dead. Like, yeah, I was hungry.
Yeah.
I wanted to close deals. I was trying to make something out of anything.
And you guys are hyper optimistic by nature. and
Oh
by
yeah,
design,
of course.
right?
I mean,
And even
that's just our energy. I mean,
Right.
we're all winners here. But when it did happen,
right.
It was crazy.
it was crazy, and it is crazy. For us, I have the most deals in escrow I've ever had in my entire career of 20 years. More listings than I've ever had in my entire career. And I agree. It's funny because it's this crazy combination of the rates. Some people who lost their jobs, they got a downside. I know a bunch of people that actually are killing it right now because of what's going on in the world. And they're buying bigger than they ever thought they would be able to buy.
Right, there's an interesting stat that just came out, I believe, today from WealthX, which said, the richest Americans, which is defined as 30 million and up in terms of net worth, have actually regained their entire losses from the pandemic. And the US has about a third of the world's ultra-rich people. So I think there is the demographics that I guess you guys traffic in haven't really been as badly affected.
Well, I mean, it's crazy because January, February, March, it started to slow down, which makes sense because we've had a cycle for the longest cycle ever was 6 years, and we're already into our probably 9th year. So, not that I'm complaining, But then the pandemic hits, and it's like, oh, we have to have a world pandemic to make the markets go up. I mean, it's totally counterintuitive. It makes zero sense. It makes sense in the fact that people are bored, they're staying home, they want change, they want to get outside. Montecito is on fire. Malibu
Well, we'll
is
talk
on
about
fire.
fires in a second as well.
So we'll talk about fires in a
Yes.
second. But the point is that it's so here's what happens. Election years, markets always drop 10% during the election. The question I have is, how is that going to be affected by COVID, and are we going to see the same thing happen? And what's going to happen after the elections? Are people going to be bored with this COVID thing and be like, fine, we're just happy in our houses and let the market go down? Or this is great, we're going to keep doing this until COVID ends, you know? So that's the question. But I've never in my life been so busy, and every day I think about it, I'm like, what is going on? We're in the middle of a pandemic and people are buying real estate. And it makes, look, the interest rates are cheap, I got it. But why is the phone literally ring? I have 3 phones at a time on, like, hold on, it's insanity.
Yeah, Claire said she's having a tough time working with you.
Yeah.
She's
that
quit
was
3
before
times.
COVID.
That has nothing to do with the market.
But so
She's
we're
quit
seeing,
3
we're
times
seeing
already.
volume, right? I think everyone across the board agrees we're seeing volume. What about pricing? There's been a disconnect in the luxury market in LA between what sellers hope to get and what buyers are willing to pay. Has that been resolved at all?
It's good though. Like it's so weird right now. Owners are willing to price their properties appropriately because they understand that elections are coming up. They understand that the market's gone on for so long. But buyers are also willing to make deals on properties and buy. It's kind of like I've never seen sellers be realistic and buyers be realistic too.
Right.
It's bizarre. And
Wait, Pierce Brosnan just listed his Malibu home for just south of $100 million, $8,000 a foot.
well,
Is that real?
But that's unrealistic.
There's always-
a difference.
Let's
There's a
let
difference.
the
there's
Brits-
always a bad sheep in the family. I'm one of them.
No, but
the
not-
Brits weigh in. Is there a bond premium on this kind of thing?
There's always a premium for a property like that, and we've seen $100 million sales in Malibu. But
Right.
what I'm experiencing, and David and I are seeing, and I'm sure the boys are too, the market's very price sensitive, right? Out of 35, 40 listings, if 10 of them are overpriced, they're sitting, they're going stale, we're not getting phone calls. For the other properties that are priced accurately, we're getting 5, 6, 7, 8 showings a week, and some of them are going into multiples. They're either selling at ask, over ask, or within 1% of ask. So I think if the sellers are smart, they're pricing accurately, we're getting action. But properties aren't trading 30% under ask like they were 18 months ago. You have to price it right, you'll get action. You go high, you won't. And it's really
There are different pockets though that are, and it's all over the map. Like for instance, I just put a house on the market for $1,995, $1,995,000. I have 10 showings from this morning when I put it on till tomorrow night. 10.
wild.
And that's insane. And it will sell. So the price point of $3 million less on fire. Then you have like that 4 to 10. People are making deals. I'm seeing more creative deals than I've ever seen. Leasebacks, owner carries, whatever it is. Anything's getting thrown into the deals, like cars, whatever. So the creativeness of deals are more than I've ever seen.
Do those incentives work though? Does a buyer care
I've
if you
never
throw
had
a
that
piece of
before.
art or art?
Circumstantial.
Right.
I mean, whatever it is, it's creativeness. But then I think, and you guys tell me what you think, the land and development side of the market has taken probably the biggest hit out of everything.
Right.
So where plans and permits on a piece of land were, hot to trot and a hot commodity, now it's crickets.
Yes.
If you had an entitled piece of land in LA, that was worth a lot, right?
Yeah, and you could buy it for 10 and sell it for 14 when it's entitled, and all you got to do is get plans and permits. Now you bought it for 10. It might be worth less, and no one's paying a premium for your plans.
And no one's speculating on future values because there's too much uncertainty.
If I could get this market that we're in right now to continue like this, meaning reasonable buyers, reasonable sellers forever, I would be the happiest person on earth. The funny thing also is that it's so day by day right now. I can literally track I can tell you if 1 week was better than 1 week prior. It's like bizarre. Like this week, it's a little slower. Last week was super busy. I don't know what's going to happen next week, but I feel like it's every day is change. Like the elections are coming up. Maybe we had the debates a couple nights ago. It's been a little slow this week. Last week I couldn't get people to stop calling me. I want to see what's going to happen this week.
I agree, and it is
A little
the
slow this
biggest
week, right?
question mark on the election
Would you agree though?
and
This
no
week
one
was a
knows.
little quieter than last?
Well, I mean,
Like everybody, everybody
Right.
is saying, well, what do you think after the election? I have no idea. It really could go either way.
I know
what are
you
your
guys
guys'
talked
thoughts?
about it, I think, on Bravo somewhere recently, where he said this, if Biden won, forget everything else. For real estate, it would be
No,
be
what
tricky.
we
He's
was-
talked about 1031s and doing away with them.
It was
He's
on
talked-
TMZ. We said,
Okay.
it was Tracy and I were walking down the street and the person came up to us and we basically both said, we're kind of screwed both ways.
Correct.
There's really no winning here. I mean, you got Trump and then you got Biden. You got both. I mean,
And number one rule in real estate is never talk politics, so we're not going to do that.
guess
here.
what? I was neutral.
Well,
I'm
so-
sure-
we're not talking about political
I'm sure you
choice.
all have your
And
opinion.
luckily, I was
That's what it is.
Well, we're
neutral.
not.
Yeah.
Let's just be clear. We're not talking political choice. We're
Yeah.
talking about politics as a factor in buying or selling. For those of you who just joined us now, this is TRD's Talks Live with the cast of $1 Million Listing LA. We're talking about LA luxury market and a lot more. So, you talked about voting. I believe you said you just voted. One of you just talked about
That was
voting.
me.
Yeah. Well, congratulations.
You can ask him who he voted for because he's not going to answer.
No, I'm not. I don't worry about
I'm
that.
about to. It's going to go in the mail tomorrow.
What I'm interested in is if you see any sort of uncertainty, any sort of like, could you wait 3 weeks before I'm, putting this house in the market? Could you wait a month before I make an offer? Are you seeing any of that sort of freezing period?
My advice right now to
Yeah.
anybody is, if you're serious about selling, get the house on the market now. The market is hot. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yep.
So I think as we near closer to the election, of course, naturally there's going to be instability. People are going to move their focus towards the election. But in my honest opinion, I believe that COVID supersedes this election. People's lifestyles and circumstance right now is more important whether Trump or Biden wins. It's more important where you're going to work from, where are your kids going to Zoom from, where's your home gym, where are you going to park your cars, are you safe? And I genuinely don't believe this election is going to slow down our market because of COVID.
Well, based on what you just said, let's talk about what is selling, right? I don't understand how, but last month, Josh, 1,400 condos sold in downtown LA on the west side, etc. Somehow, a market that was quite reticent about vertical living is now popping, right? How are condos selling in a time like this when you would think the premium would be space, privacy, etc.?
Yeah, I'm actually surprised to hear that number. In my personal experience, condos are not moving.
Right.
We have quite a few on the market.
This is the time to buy.
But it's a time to buy, and I think there's opportunity with that. So.
What do you guys think about the vertical
I think,
living?
well, first of all, I think condos are horrible investments no matter what, unless you're in New York. Now, granted, if you like that lifestyle and you have a certain budget, it can be fantastic because you could pay $4 million for a condo, which would be an apartment that somebody that was moving out of a $20 million house would move into because they're just not as expensive. Given that said, they don't really appreciate the way dirt appreciates. You're just buying air rights or you're buying a view. So even when my clients do buy condos, I always say to them, look, the building is great now, it's going to be dated. You can never change that. It's like a house, it's going to get old looking. With a house, you own the land, you own the dirt, you have something. The only thing, if you're going to buy a condo, I would suggest is at least buy the best view you can afford in it because that will never change.
Can I say one thing though?
Yeah, sure.
And I agree with everything Josh just said, by the way, but I think that ties into the reason that we're seeing so much activity specifically in LA, okay? Because people are mostly buying houses and they're mostly buying this lifestyle. Now you think about where you're going to quarantine and where you can still actively, easily continue to work, right?
And live a life overall, right?
It's LA. It checks every single box, right? Which is why I believe that New York, and it's probably pretty obvious why New York is probably struggling more than LA because of the lifestyle.
Right.
People are spending more and more time at home. They want the space. They want the backyard. They love a pool, but they want the weather and the lifestyle. And that, in my opinion, is what's going to continue this market beyond the election.
But I will tell you, there is some condo projects that have killed it here.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
so
what
you got the
Yeah.
Addition, which is blended rate of about $3,100 a foot. The Harlan is a beautiful one. There's 8808 Beverly. So there's a lot of good full service stuff, which we haven't seen before.
Right.
Like that's what's changing. Those are better buys than some of the old.
But is that
stuff.
lifestyle taking hold amongst your buyers? Do they care about that stuff more than they did maybe?
Post-COVID, probably less because they're going to want more space. They're going to want. We've seen a lot of people that we've service that have moved out of condos, out of apartments, into single family homes, whether it's rental or purchase. So in that respect, pre-COVID, absolutely. Post-COVID, less so, but back to Altman's point, absolutely. I mean, people do love the full service if they are going to be in a
There's a
condo.
Couldn't even
There's a
say
flip
Josh, and you
side.
just call him Altman. When you said Josh, it felt unnatural. Right?
There's a flip side to all of this, which is condo living in LA, which
Right.
is somewhat new. Could be a great buying opportunity, right? The reason people are moving away from condo buildings now is because you're buying into the amenities.
Yep.
But with COVID, who the hell wants to use shared amenities,
yeah.
elevators, gym?
Although,
But
what's with these
this
little
will
buttons
pass.
now? The elevators, like
Yes,
wiping
they have
buttons?
sanitizer buttons.
What
now.
is that? And I keep trying because I'm licking it with my tongue to see if something happens.
Oh, go Flagg.
we
So
get more
glad I'm
alcohol?
sitting
What
next
did
to
you
you.
do that?
Josh,
For some reason, I haven't. I don't know. I haven't got it yet, so I'm assuming that it's.
But it could be it could be seen as a good buying
Hey,
opportunity.
come on in. Josh
Trey.
needs more
Oh,
wine.
I
Yeah,
thought
thank
that was
you.
Fine.
Tracy.
And
Angel.
Tracy,
Here's the 5th member of $1 Million.
wow,
Yay.
look at that. She decided
Olympia.
to show up.
Not
20
you,
minutes
Tracy.
late.
Shout your.
Tracy, this is
She's
live.
like, pour me a glass
This
of
is,
wine.
how, this is how it works when you're dealing with
Don't mind us.
celebrities. This is how it works.
I mean, if
Don't
that
mind
doesn't
us.
set the scene of what we deal with all the
Yes.
time, then I don't know what does.
But you look great.
I was going to
sir.
say,
So
Tracy,
good.
it was worth the wait.
Everyone else was
you like
20
a
minutes
glass of
early,
wine, dear?
but pleasure to have you.
You know, Josh said be on time.
Okay.
That's fair. That's fair.
Is that
I
belt
actually
milk?
purposely
That's
said
awesome.
a half an hour early so nobody was late.
we'll mic Tracy up and then we'll get back into it. But
Anyway, so
you guys talked about the market being
can we
on.
go back to Condo for one more second? I just want to intersect one thing.
About condos?
Son is hitting
Yeah.
us.
Go ahead.
Flagg, you used to live in a condo. You loved it before.
I love. Did I say I didn't like? I'm saying for money and in terms of investment, I would love to, and I don't know the answer, but I'd like to see what the Century prices were when they came out in 2009 or 10. I can't remember when it came out, and what that same condo is selling for today.
I think it's pretty.
I'll tell you because I have the listings.
It's pretty even.
Exactly.
When she comes in, yeah.
That's not a good thing.
That's 10 years down the
I mean,
line.
it's not a bad thing, but it's not a good
How are you,
thing.
sweetheart?
Hi,
The point is, they
darling.
didn't really go up. They didn't lose
Oh,
their
that's
money,
good.
but they didn't
Tracy,
really go up.
Tracy, who are you wearing today?
Zara
There you go.
So,
and Oscar.
We're
de la
joined
Hoya.
Yeah,
by
exactly.
we're joined by our final panelist,
Which
Tracy,
part is
Tracy
Mara?
Tutor.
Your
Hi.
underwear. Nothing else.
If I introduce her, Josh, please.
What?
Tracy Tutor of Douglas Elliman, our final panelist. Tracy, pleasure to have you
Thank
with
you.
us. I was actually, since you came, but I was actually going to take this to a slightly more depressing turn. We talked about the market being on fire, but unfortunately, parts of the place we are, the state we're in, are literally on fire, right? How much of an impact is that having on people's long-term decisions to be here, to move here, right? You talk about New York, you don't want to be in a crowded place during the pandemic, but do you really want to be in a state where the wildfires are getting worse and worse, the mudslides keep going?
I gotta be honest.
Is that happening? Is that sort
I
of
really don't.
conversation?
Honestly, I've got to be honest. It has not impacted my business whatsoever.
It's not impacting our business, but I will say this. People aren't afraid or making a financial decision based on fires, but where we do have a problem
The
is when
insurance
they
companies.
go to get insurance.
Yeah.
And there's been moratoriums in place on
It's
insurance,
crazy.
and
Yeah.
prices are triple and quadruple in certain areas. And
particularly in the
it's a
super
concern.
high end, in the hills like Bel Air and stuff like that, you're going to see premiums that are so astounding that people are actually backing out of escrow because the insurance premiums are far past what they anticipated they would be.
That's a problem.
We had a client in escrow, by the way, thankfully it closed, $240,000 for fire
How
and
much was the
earthquake
house?
insurance.
That's crazy.
But if you look at the market,
Yeah.
How much
so
was the house?
Malibu is on fire right now. But
Same thing happened
No,
to
not
literally.
Not literally.
For August,
Malibu
same
market
thing.
Right.
2 million
is
plus,
hotter
it's just like
than I've
they ended
ever
up
seen
closing
it.
making
Even though
money
it's
because
prone
of
to-
high risk.
Right.
It's
And
insane.
so, but the
Crazy.
number one factor that
Crazy.
we hear in our escrows in Malibu is how much is fire insurance going to cost us? But you do see
In the Palisades.
a negotiation of that in the deal. So if it's a $10 million house and it's costing you $250,000 a year on fire insurance, that's going to reflect on the price, but the property's still going to move because people, a lot of them are comfortable now moving to Malibu full time where they weren't before because they don't have to do the commute
have
that
to
they
do the
And to
typically
the
have to
seller's
do.
credit, like
Your
if I was a seller,
marketing,
I would be like,
Tracy-
I don't care that your insurance is high. That's not my problem.
Tracy, you're marketing a pretty high-end portfolio in Malibu. What's that experience been like?
As I call
I'm
your boyfriend,
actually,
Scott.
he was commenting on my Instagram just
Well, at
today.
least he's looking at it.
Yeah, well, he's always looking at it. I'm no longer working
Okay.
with Scott Gillen on that portfolio, but I do have a new listing.
Hey, what do you think about
but
it?
the new castle is still available.
Still available
the
for
same
all
price,
of you.
no?
6 years
No, they
later.
actually reduced it.
Oh, they
and
did.
he's
So
right-
now it's only
Question,
20
though?
million.
Do they still have the cling film
Wait,
on the
can I ask
toilet
you a
seat?
question though?
Did they reduce it to 30 million?
Can I
Oh
ask
my
you a
God,
question?
it's literally
I've never
like-
actually seen the house, but I've sold houses that he's done, and he has apparently a good reputation. I don't think that house is somewhat even attractive. Or is it just the way it shows
You're
from
on
the
the
videos?
spot, Tracy.
Listen,
No, but I'm saying, like, I watched the video footage of it, and I was like, I don't think this is even good looking.
there's elements to that house architecturally that do not stand out.
Well, let's start
Period,
with
the
what
end.
does stand out in a good way.
The
Because I couldn't
views are-
identify one of
views are
them.
decent.
All right, enough talk about him.
Yeah,
Scale,
we
but
could-
the
yeah.
bottom line is,
Yeah.
I have another listing
Sure.
on Sweetwater
Which
Mesa
looks amazing, by the
that
way.
is incredible. That's 31.5 million with plans that are just about RTI, and it's 14 acres flat, and it's surrounded by a lot of hillside, and of course in Malibu that's
Sure.
a big challenge,
Right.
but we're seeing a lot of traction with that, and of course we just dropped that like this week. So I don't think it's really affecting that many people when it comes to the super high end.
Right, but the
even
nuts
in
and bolts of
Malibu.
it, the insurance, the rates, that will all have to be worked out at some point. Otherwise, it's going to impact.
I'm curious when that's going to end, or when it's going to slow down, when the insurance,
When they recoup their losses, I guess. But
that'll be in 2042.
well, then that's when it will be. But the reality is that what Josh Altman just said was that when you're dealing with these big numbers, they will be accounted for, i.e. the insurance premium changes. They'll just factor it into their purchase price. And it actually isn't that significant when you're actually looking at the big numbers.
When you're buying a $50 million home, that's not as much.
it kind of is a wash
Yeah,
almost.
right.
But it's scary. I mean, it is very scary.
It's more scary that your replacement value for
Yeah.
something like that. There's just no coming back from it. I don't care insurance. I mean, a lot of the people that suffered from the fires in Malibu the first time around, and even in Bel Air, had incredibly difficult times finding the insurance companies to
Yeah.
cover their losses.
And the whole, it's a traumatic 16 or 18 month period where they get a rental, they figure out what to do, right? If their homes were damaged, there's a long process to come back.
yeah.
It's an emotionally
It's not-
traumatic
yes, I mean, it's not-
time
it's
as well.
Especially
it's
if you're
not a
not in
good
that
situation
business,
at all.
right? As a homeowner that didn't ever plan to build a house, you now got to build a house.
Yeah.
So sometimes they just dump it on the market.
Yeah.
All right, next subject.
And by the way,
moderator?
so-
Moderator?
No, I was bored. I was
in short,
can't help himself.
in short,
It's
everyone's
just
still moving to
like-
Los Angeles.
I think
the market's hotter
Yeah.
than ever. And yeah, the fires happen,
Yeah.
but we still live in the greatest
I
place
think he's
in the
abusing his
world.
host privileges a little bit.
I mean,
mean?
you
He
see
still
why
gets
they have
hammered
to
off
separate
two
us on the
glasses.
show? Like they can only put us all in one room together. Notice this.
Yeah.
Twice a season.
No, this is-
I'm the only one who can say in this.
This is the real deal.
I'm the only one who can say here that I'm actually closer friends with all of you than any of you are with each other.
That's
So
very
there you
nice,
go.
which is why we're in your house.
Bragger.
I
And
want
we
to.
got a six
That means I'm really likable.
after
I
this.
can
Flagg's
see
been
that.
cooking all day for us.
I want to ask about just all of you are recognizable names, not only in LA, but nationally. You have your own brand. You have a pretty extensive book of clients. None of you have your own shops, right? All of you are attached to a bigger firm. I want to know, in a time like this, when there's less use of your office, when it's all about your personal brand, it's all about social media, it's all about your own book. What's the point of being in a larger firm? Give me sort of the rundown on why you choose
very
to-
simple.
part of it.
the liability and paying your split to the company is a lot more valuable than literally having to take on a bunch of agents, be a manager, and take on the liability and all the headaches that come along with it. Like, what's the benefit? I can't even see it.
I think that we all are so busy, and we're all top agents in LA.
Pay me to do it.
It's another thing that we would have to have on our plate, which I don't think any of us have room on that plate right
You've got
now.
a good
We're
gig.
going to leave that to Ryan.
You have your own store.
So I was just
You
going to
work for a
mention,
company.
Ryan just did
That's
that,
the
and then
perfect-
Brandon and
I agree.
Rainey,
Whatever you call it.
to a couple of
Perfect
other
setup.
top agents in LA, just struck out on their own. So I'm trying to understand the big firm versus sort of lone
Like I
ranger.
love our shop, the Altman Brothers office.
You've
We
got a
have
good gig.
storefront,
I like what you got.
and that's our home base, and we're
No,
in
meaning
there
that
all
he
the
doesn't
time.
have to run a business. He can still, he's under Douglas Elliman, but he doesn't have to take on the liability. And I think it's a good, that's what I would do if I would, okay.
Yeah, and good news is we're hiring. So Josh, come on over.
Thanks.
Guys, I'd love to get your take on that as well.
Can I clean the trash cans
mean-
for you at nighttime?
No, honestly, I think that I speak on behalf of myself and James to a degree. We are at the agency. It's a very collaborative firm, so we actually do a lot of deals in-house. We share a lot of pocket listings, Should I have said that?
Well, we're good. Yeah.
But the reality is we share a lot of information, and we find that it benefits us being there more than perhaps at this moment it would if we weren't there.
But it's also a phenomenal brand. And I know we're each to our own brands, but I feel like at the agency, we incorporate that brand. And that's not for everybody, but it is for us. We want to be a part of a bigger brand. And I feel like when you are selling a house, there are certain people that will associate you as an individual with a brand. And through our marketing and media and other avenues of branding, we're able to sell houses internationally. And we like to be a part of that bigger brand.
And I think it's safe to say that every single one of us could easily open up our own brokerage.
That's what I mean.
Tomorrow.
Yeah,
and we would all be very successful.
Well, what about my comment? I called you like 2 months ago. Maybe you don't remember this. I think I called you too.
Oh, I
You
remember.
called me.
Did
Flagg
I?
wanted to team up, right?
I said, let's
$1 million
open
number that
Let's
was.
open our own
That sounds like you're saying like I want to be a
open
partner.
our
said
own
that at
consulting
Chicago.
I
firm.
said, let's do something. Let's call it the firm,
I remember.
and let's all open up our own office and kill it.
By the way, I
thought
love
that
that
was
name,
because
and I
you drank
can't
the
believe you
martini.
just.
I genuinely
Did your,
thought
the same
sorry,
thing happen on
I-
your call that happened on mine?
Yeah.
I can't hear you.
If it's after 11 in the morning, you know I'm wasted. It's a joke.
12, not 11.
He was 2 martinis in
know how
and
you
he
know
said
you're not
that
an
idea
alcoholic
about the
when you can
firm,
make
and I
jokes
genuinely
about it?
thought he
You
was
can
You
joke
notice
about
we're all dry here
he
except
wasn't.
for our host. But you talked about pocket listings. Has that whole thing died down? This whole thing about pocket listings illegal, and there was a fight, and there
It's so
wasn't a
annoying.
fight. Turns out like everyone's basically doing business
Well,
as usual.
it's pretty annoying because
Right.
all of us would like to be double-ending deals more often than we probably are because they're making it a little bit more difficult on everyone. But at the end of the day, you know, fair market in most cases is going to bring the seller the best value. And so they're looking at it from the perspective nationally that we're not doing what's in the best interest of our clients. There are very, very few cases, obviously, when you have something very special, you guys can speak to that, where maybe off market or a pocket listing might bring you the better price. But more often than not, if you bring a house and you share it with 1 million people, that's, you know, 999,000, or sorry.
Is everyone on board with that? Because I feel like I hear a lot
this
of.
is what I
Come on,
don't-
Josh, you're muted for this one.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
You could just unmic him.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Just turning the electricity off.
Just do a one-off.
I'd love to get your take, Josh. I haven't chatted
Look,
with you before.
for me, I love pocket listings.
Yep.
I think they're great. And I think there's a whole part of the market that needs to be pocket listings. And with someone trying to remove that, you're actually removing the benefit for a celebrity sale, a trophy property, a property that can't necessarily be marketed the normal way. You're actually alienating those listings. So I think it's completely damaging.
Alienating how? Are you just? Why is that being alienated?
Because look, a lot of the deals we do, out of the 500 million I sold last year,
Pass that to Olympia.
200 of it was off market.
Okay.
A major amount.
This is his 5th.
And so, you know, without that, it forces us to put it on the actual market. But sometimes our clients, it's not so much what we want. Our clients don't want their property out there for
Right.
certain reasons.
Right.
So I think there is an issue there.
But also, too, I mean, if you think about the sellers that sometimes want to price their properties perhaps 30% over what they're valued at, a great way for agents, I think, across the country to navigate that is to say, hey, you know what, why don't we test the market a little
Yeah.
bit as a pocket? Let's see what this price is fetching and what the feedback is before we put it out to everyone, and you can't reverse the clock.
I think it's the most ridiculous.
I mean, Sonoma
rule.
Right. You
Couture,
guys have, your firm has spoken out quite a bit.
Here's what I
Josh.
don't understand. I
never
always-
again are you to bring this bottle in my presence.
I know
Oh
it's
my
too expensive. I had
God, that's
$12 wine on the way over, but they said it was.
That's
Stop
like a
drinking wine
Costco
on a panel.
special.
What's wrong
$20
with
wine.
you?
Is it
So
awful?
here's my thought on this. I always equate real estate with art.
gonna
Can
share
you
a glass
imagine
with him.
if you owned a painting and somebody wanted to buy your painting, and somebody told you you have to put it at Christie's or Sotheby's and put it on the auction block. You are not allowed to sell it direct to another person. What if the person next door to me, the neighbor, said, I want to buy your house? How can you possibly tell me that I am not allowed to do a transaction without putting it on the open market and opening it to other people? It almost is
You
like
can though.
It's
You
more
just
about the
can't.
promotion.
offensive.
The promotion of the property is where they're drawing the line. We're still doing off-market deals. You all
okay,
know
the
that.
promotion. So I'm not allowed to. So am I allowed to go over, ring the bell, and say, "Hey, I'm
Yes.
considering selling"?
You're not allowed to market the property publicly.
Or
Which you
outside
should
of
be
your
allowed to do.
office.
You should be allowed to market your proty however you want to market
I
your property.
totally
to the seller.
agree, but I'm saying what
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is a very simple business that a lot of people want to complicate, right? Our job is to sell real estate. Why on earth would the MLS put a stop to us marketing properties off market?
Because they want to capitalize on
Other
it.
than
how
they
do they
want
capitalize
to
on it?
retain control.
It's a monopoly.
They're
Is
not,
that it?
but how are they capitalizing?
Because if it continues
Who owns
down
the
that
MLS, by
road,
the
look
way?
at it. If it
Privately
continues down
By whom?
that road, the MLS will make less money. There will be more and
owns
more
the MLS?
off-market deals.
Right.
Cut to the pocket. The PLS?
The
I'm not even going to say what. There's
owns the
another. There's
MLS?
another PLS out there. I'm just saying.
Can somebody tell me
I'll
who
share
owns
that
the
with you
MLS?
after.
Actually,
off
don't
the
know.
line.
It's
Is it
Multiple
privately
MLS.
held? I feel like it's a.
Pretty sure it's probably.
I feel like real estate organizations own it.
It's actually a good story.
It's not like some dude who owns it
you're
and
both
is profiting. I highly doubt it.
Sunday.
Oh, no,
It's
somebody.
Sunday.
I love you.
Somebody.
You know, it's a good
Panelists,
thing.
MLSs
I-
are not
That's a great
connected in
song.
different states.
No.
I still
Yeah.
feel like it's a thing that's like a. All
right, what else?
There's all these split up. I want to ask about we're talking a lot about the industry here. We're getting into specifics and stuff. Most of the time you're associated with the show and you're associated with being top agents. Sometimes the show doesn't really reflect your day-to-day jobs, right? It's sort of a turned up volume version of it. So I guess I wanted to wrap up by what is the part of your job that you would most love to be understood and appreciated by the people who watch the show?
Well,
Because
Josh
some of it
always
gets sort of
dresses up
lost.
as a-
Josh is wearing
In a cape
24-year-old flip-flops.
What are you wearing? You're wearing a linen shirt and sneakers.
This is what you miss on the show.
I'm sorry.
Talking.
Josh doesn't whitewash these jeans.
In terms of being, I meant more in terms
Last
of
time I
being
went on a $30 million listing appointment in these sandals, they didn't seem to have a problem.
Okay, here we
really
go.
getting
This is
upset
what
about
I would
this.
say
Yeah.
for me, what I feel the show, what you don't see on the
I'm good.
show,
Thank you, darling. Appreciate
is
it.
the 90% of our day, which is a struggle dealing with clients and deals that don't happen. People go, oh, I mean, I'm sure everybody here gets 1,000 emails a day. I got into real estate because of you. I want to be a realtor because you guys make a lot of money and you sell a
I
house
hate when
in an
Canada
hour.
calls.
And
Don't you hate
it's
those
like,
Canadian calls? Always from Canada.
and
We
it's
want
just
to buy a house
not.
here.
I mean, the amount of deals that you see us
hate it.
doing, there is 5 times those amount of deals that don't get done. We don't get paid for the deals that don't happen. And
So it's a lot of strikeouts,
Full
right?
service right there,
That's
yeah.
how it goes. Thank you. Tracy,
why, you should be
same-
on this panel. What is it like working with Josh Flagg?
horrible.
Be careful. Like,
How's your moment?
Look at the camera.
No, let's guys.
Let's
Like, I know where my bread is
what
buttered.
is it like working for Josh?
don't worry
nice.
about it, guys.
Very
we
nice.
want to wrap up in the
She
next
told me
couple
she
minutes,
likes Bobby more than
let's,
me.
Let's get your take on that.
Go on, Trace.
Oh,
What you would like the viewers to see. They don't
Something that gets
Oh.
sort of missed out when they're watching the show. They know you only from the show, not as
No,
a.
definitely, and you posted about this the other day, and I commented because I couldn't help it. Is the loss, the losses that we take on a daily basis, the amount of time and effort that we put into listings that don't close. The same answer that he gave. You know, it's so very glamorous when we drive up in our fancy cars and show the houses, and of course we have these camera angles and lighting showing some of these places in really beautiful lights, like. Not always that beautiful and really difficult to sell. So that's.
like that listing appointment we went on in top. I don't even know what the fuck that
Oh
was.
my God! If the cameras could have caught
You
this
would literally.
one.
There was a
Tell
woman.
us.
Please.
Well, of course he called me because this, like, Josh doesn't really cross like the 405. So, where was it? Mar Vista. It was.
Oh,
in,
there's
like,
not a chance in hell, Flagg. You
so
don't even
he's
know where
like,
Mar Vista
Tracy, you
is?
want to
Listen
do
to
a
the
color?
story.
I'm like, honey, I'll go with you. So we get in the car, which
You're
was
such
a
a good
riot
sport.
in and of itself, and we pull up to the listing, and there's a woman sitting out front on a bucket painting for the fence. And we're like, and I'm like, is that the house? And he's like, I think so. And so we walked up and we were knocking on the door, and Josh goes, you know, we're looking for, and he like looks at his phone, you know, so-and-so. And she goes, yes, that's my husband. And so we're like, oh, Jesus, here we go.
Well, that's
the one
something I'd
painted-
want to watch. I wish it was on the show.
absolutely.
was.
And
Did
even
you get the
funnier,
listing, Tracy?
the house was literally a trash bin. It was so disgusting and gross. And literally we're going
This is
through
live,
there,
isn't it?
and we couldn't stop laughing so hard. We were just like, we love your china and your crystal.
They didn't reveal the
They
address.
could be watching.
Josh tried
I
to
assume
pawn
they
me
didn't take
off.
the listing at this point.
Gentlemen, let's.
We didn't
I'd
get
say
it before this,
the only
so
thing
I
I'd
guess
say
it
is,
doesn't make a difference.
What you see is you see a deal typically or a lost deal in the show, right, per episode. What I would love to see is the amount that we're juggling at any one time.
Yep.
We don't really get that full effect because it just wouldn't fit into that time space. But when you're dealing with maybe, 10, 15 deals at the same time or clients, and you just see a typical day that we're in, you basically have a whole season in one day. Do you know what I mean? It's like there's just so much juggling. But again, that's just part of
Or
it.
what happens after, the cut happens, because we don't see it until everybody else does, maybe 24 hours before. And then you're like, oh wait, there was a whole nother scene there where it went super south.
Right.
Wait, can we go
I
back?
wish
Hold on.
they just showed when after Flagg gets paid, like what he spends it on. That's a show. That's what I want to see.
This dinner tonight was probably $6,000.
Not-
So
There's
there's some hint.
$6,000 on this dinner?
The chef and the bartender, probably maybe half of that. Probably.
Just gone half.
Wait, hold on.
I'm taking.
Wait,
I'm
hold on.
taking
This is
some to
good. Wait,
go.
this is going back to that listing appointment. Can you tell them what happened when we walked in the room and there was the picture of her son on the wall?
She tried to pawn me off on their son and said that I was available. And
Imagine they're watching this.
what were they?
No. There's a picture of a actually very attractive.
David's the only one who's ashamed
There's
of
this
what's
very
going on.
attractive picture of a very
I
attractive
mean-
man on the wall, and I go, wow, maybe this is great for Tracy. And she goes, the mother goes, no, he's married. I go, do you have a daughter? She goes, yes. I go, she goes both ways.
I think we'd wrap up with that. I want to thank first of all our host again. He might have talked a lot, but he's a very generous host.
Thank you.
So appreciate you having us
Appreciate
here.
it. I think that was a
and the
compliment.
cast of $1 Million Listing LA
Thank
with
you
the
so
real
much.
deal.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks,
Cheers.
guys.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Season 13.
Yeah, baby.
We'll see you soon, huh?
We get
See you
picked up.
soon.